there will be a National College Football Playoff without Alabama. This is the sixth one. This is the first one without the Crimson Tide. Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama on the line to talk Tide with us, as he does on a regular basis. Stephen, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. For the first time, I can finally be on video after the grind of getting those player interviews.
Alabama, Michigan. Obviously, as we get closer to the game, Stephen, we'll dive more into the matchups themselves, but just your first initial impressions of Alabama taking on Jim Harbaugh and company, and just the name brand matchup that we have here in the Citrus Bowl.
Oh, it's great. I mean, going down to Orlando, Florida, Camping World Stadium to check out that atmosphere is fantastic. As you mentioned, this was not the situation Alabama wanted to be in, but it's in the situation. And it's an opportunity for the Crimson Tide to end its year on a good note, salvage the season, and kind of jumpstart next year in its plan to get back to the top of college football, that being win a national championship. But just my initial thoughts on Michigan, Jim Harbaugh's got a good program. Shea Patterson's a big-time quarterback and will look to get some things done. You've got a former Bama staffer on the Michigan side, and Josh Gaddis, who was at Alabama just a season ago as the kind of passing game coordinator or co-OC mixed in with wide receivers coach, working with this group of Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs III, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle. So Josh Gaddis very familiar with this Alabama Crimson Tide staff. So he's in this matchup. Going to be very entertaining. You got the brand names. You got the two brand coaches in Saban and Harbaugh. You got two story-filled programs in the Sunshine State. Of course, yours truly, I'll be down there taking all of us in. So my initial thoughts, I'm looking forward to it.
So, Stephen, I've heard Nick Saban address this a number of times, not just this season, but in past seasons since the playoff era was instituted, that I don't know that he feels bad, but he thinks it's unjust that there's so much emphasis on the playoff, even though his team has made the playoff year after year, 5 consecutive years, that he has talked about the state of college football and where coaches have in the past been judged to have really good seasons, go to good bowl games, be able to finish the season on a winning note, winning a nice bowl game against a good opponent, and that being considered a quality, successful season. And now with this playoff, a lot of those seasons are discarded as, it really didn't matter. The fan base is disgruntled. We didn't get to the playoff, and him thinking that the bowl system is not what it used to be, and that he kind of longs for those days. And now he finds himself in that position where they didn't make the playoff this year. How motivated is, I know that he's going to be motivated personally because he still cherishes the bowl system and matchups like a Michigan in postseason play. But he needs to convey that, obviously, to his team.
And he's been doing that, Mark. And of course, I mean, let's be honest, these 18 to 22-year-old players, they want a national championship. Let's not kid ourselves. They want to compete for the SEC. They want to be in the national championship picture. They want to be in the college football playoff. All of these things are 100% true. But at the same time, I go back to watching those guys leave the field at Jordan-Hare. I have never seen student athletes cry like that. I have never seen guys having to be pulled off the field. I have never seen guys that look at a camera and go, I don't want to talk to this camera. And these are things I have never seen. And these guys were hurt. And these were a number of guys that were hurt. And they don't want to have that feeling happen again. So I feel like they'll be up for this game. They'll be motivated by this game, especially with it being a brand name team, a traditional power like a Michigan. So you don't really have to say much to get players up for a game like this. Even though it's not the college football playoff, even though it's not a New Year's Six bowl, Michigan still carries weight. And when you're playing a team that still carries weight among the national brand, you don't have to say much to get the ears perked up and get these guys prepared to play. So, I mean, of course, the last time Alabama missed out on a big opportunity and had to go down to Florida to play in a bowl game, i.e. the 2011 Capital One Bowl off the 2010 season. Alabama went down to Florida and beat the brakes off Michigan State, who had a good quarterback by the name of Kirk Cousins, if I'm not mistaken. So you can always draw off that.
You led me right into my next topic. It's an extension of this topic. It's the same topic, but in regards to exactly where my mind was headed, because on one hand, Alabama competes for the SEC and the national championship every year. And when that's not achieved, it's a disappointment. And this is the first time in the playoff era, we're going to get a chance to see what that looks like on the field and see the motivation. And again, Nick Saban, his motivation, his incentive, I don't think wanes. He values and respects the bowl system and the opponent and wants to win every game badly. But can he convey that to his players? And the best example and the most recent example we have of that is exactly the game that you just pointed out. Michigan State was higher ranked. They were coming off an 11-1 season in which they lost out on the Rose Bowl bid based on a tiebreaker, but they tied for the Big Ten championship. It was one of those classic Mark Antonio situations in which he maxed out the ability on that team. They were a good team, but then they ran into a buzzsaw of an NFL team that was disappointed, teed off, and ready to go. And we questioned, is Alabama really into this? Well, we found out very quickly in that game that Alabama was motivated.
They were, and they looked to have the same thing on this regard. Just the main thing is getting back out there on the field for the bowl prep. I mean, you get a couple of weeks off to rest and recuperate, but in the weeks to come, probably next week, if I'm not mistaken, you're going to have to get back out there, get back out to fundamental tackling, doing the right things on the field in terms of offense, defense, special teams, not having the penalties. This is the most penalized team of the Nick Saban era, so getting back to disciplined football, but I feel like the motivation will be there. It will definitely be there. And then, of course, guys are going to hold each other accountable of making sure that, you're not the one that allows us to, drop this game or fall in this game to Michigan. So while it's not the venue that people have grown accustomed to seeing, this has happened before. We saw the result of what happened before of Alabama beating Michigan State, So once again, I'll be down there. Should be a fun matchup.
So as you mentioned, it's an opportunity to rest up physically, get regenerated, refreshed, and reinvigorated. Mentally, it's an opportunity to separate the disappointment and the conclusion of the season on the plains at Auburn, get that fresh start and say, okay, we've got one more challenge, one more time that this team is going to step on the field together. Let's not get embarrassed. Let's not let down. Let's show to the nation we're going to be on the national stage, even though this may not, quote unquote, be an important game, depending on your viewpoint. People watch bowl games, and everybody's going to be watching that's watching college football. That's the thing about bowl games. Alabama-Auburn is enormously huge, but there's a distinction there. That television audience is divided between Alabama-Auburn and whomever else is playing. So even that's the biggest game played, there's like 7 or 8 other games on. When you're playing a bowl game, you're the only game in town. So if you're watching college football, you're going to watch Alabama-Michigan. And so the ratings on that game are going to be enormous. People are watching, and it's still the brand, and it's still your reputation.
And not only just that, Mark, you look at it, this is a game for a number of different guys. Number one, this is a game for Mac Jones to build more tape. You're in your first ever bowl game as the guy, as the starting quarterback. He played well in the Iron Bowl despite 2 interceptions, 2 pick sixes, very hostile environment, but still threw for over 300 passing yards and had 4 touchdowns. He showed that, even with Tua Tagovailoa out, and how special he is, I can take upon the responsibility to lead this offense, which he did that. Now he's got a chance to build some tape in an actual bowl game against a very good traditional national power in Michigan. So this is a big moment for Mac Jones. This is a big moment, for freshmen on the team. These guys are no longer freshmen. This begins their first game of stepping into their sophomore year. Guys like Evan Neal, guys like Shane Lee, Christian Harris, Jordan Battle on the defensive side of the football. For a lot of these young, talented, true freshmen, this begins your first taste of you are about to enter your second year. How do you start that adjustment? How do you start that physical regimen, that mental regimen, watching the film? This game sets you up for your second year. How do they handle it?
Christmas is coming, folks. Shop Amazon. Use the link in the description section below. Help us build the channel. Stephen M. Smith of Touchdown Alabama breaking down the Tide in regards to the Michigan game, recruiting, and also that junior class looking to look at its and review its NFL draft stock. Stephen, we appreciate you stopping by, sir.
No problem, Mark. Thank you, guys.